Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just like you to know that I'm standing in for Mayor Bretan tonight, who's unavailable, and as acting mayor, that's one of my roles. So I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Council to order for Monday, March 8th, 2010, and I'd ask staff to introduce the late items, please.
Thank you. We're deleting item 5A under presentations, Mr. Per Christensen. We're adding item 8B, proclamations, elimination of Racial Discrimination Day. Delete item 11B, staff reports, unsightly premises at 190 Westwood Road.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by, do you need the names? No. Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Adoption of the minutes for February the 18th.
Move adopted as circulated.
Second motion.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
22nd, I move those be moved as circulated.
Thank you.
Second motion.
Moved and seconded for February 22nd. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have no presentations tonight. Delegations. The standing item is that we ask for any delegations pertaining to the 2010-2014 financial plan, which is on the agenda for the final adoption tonight. Anyone? Okay, seeing that, we'll go to item B under delegations. Mr. Charles Thurkel, Dr. Alan Horiski, and Ms. Alice Sue. Hope that pronunciation is correct. On behalf of the Friends of Harewood Plains, would you like to come forward? Is there anyone here from that delegation? Is that Charles? Okay. Seeing no one, we'll hold that. Oh, here he is. He is. I thought that was Charles. Welcome, Mr. Thurkel.
5 minutes is up, sir.
So you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And apologies for being a little bit late this evening. This is my first visit to the Shaw Auditorium, and I got lost.
And you ran up the stairs, it sounds like.
It's a terrific facility. Absolutely impressive. But I'm here tonight. My name is Charles Thurkel. I live at 611 Shaughnessy Place, Nanaimo. And I'm here tonight on behalf of the Friends of Harewood Plains. And we're here to ask Council to consider a proposal that the city adopt a wildflower as a floral emblem. And this may seem a little bit unusual, and it probably is in contrast to some of the other issues you have to deal with. But this is a fun issue, and I promise it won't cost you a penny. Ever. As a matter of fact, it might make you money. How does $50,000 sound? Great. So that is the amount of money that the Friends of Harewood Plains has already brought to the Nanaimo economy in the past 5 years by asking government agencies all the way from here to Ottawa to fund the clearing of broom on Harewood Plains on the south end of Nanaimo. That money went to pay students, high school students usually, often doing their first actual job for summer work. And we cleared 2 kilometers of the hydro line. And you can see from the picture overhead that Harewood Plains is on the very southern edge of town, and it's on the very southern boundary. I'll use my laser pointer if I may. Does that work for you, or should I point it down here perhaps? I can't really see it. But it's on the southern end of town. That yellow line is the southern boundary. Those green dots that you can see are known locations for this rare flower. The land to the south of the city here is owned by Island Timberlands, and to the north it's a piece of private property that's bounded by the city limit and the Nanaimo Parkway. That little patch of ground is called Harewood Plains. I guarantee you that 90% of the people who live in Nanaimo have probably never heard of it. But especially if you go to Victoria and talk to the people at the Conservation Data Centre or the Garryock Ecosystems Recovery Team, they know it very, very well as a wildflower meadow. And in fact, it's known all the way from here to Ottawa because those little green dots represent about 20 or 30 locations where a rare and endangered plant grows, Lotus pinnatus. It's a pretty remarkable plant, but it's only one of about 15 or 16 that grows on that site. And it's a very, very highly valued meadow. One botanist in Victoria, Dr. Adolf Cheska, rated it as the fourth most important wildflower meadow in southern Vancouver Island. And he's not biased, but the other three were all in Victoria. So it's a rare little piece of habitat. I'll leave Dr. Alan Heriski to explain why it's so unusual. But I just want to let you know that Lotus pinnatus, or its proper name is bog bird's foot trefoil, so I'll just call it Lotus pinnatus. There are 1,800 plants in all of Canada. We know that because they've been counted by a professional botanist who came up from Victoria to do it. Howard Plains and a couple of little patches to the south has 1,500 of those plants. So they're very much ours to protect and to enjoy. There's about another 200-300 plants, some of which grow on Gabriola and some on Ladysmith Bluffs. Other than that, there are no other flowers known of in the country, anywhere. None on the mainland, none in other provinces. There are lots to the south of us, Washington and Oregon. This is a very rare flower in this country. And I don't know about you, but I kind of like wildflowers, and hundreds of people come here to see these flowers. And I personally don't want to have to get a passport to have to go and look at them. So it's nice that they're in the States, but we kind of like having them here too. I'll cut my presentation really short because I want Dr. Heriski to speak, and Alice and Emma Shui to speak to you too. But I just want to let you know that we've put in about 2 years of spade work on this idea, this proposal. In fact, I think Councillor Unger may remember 2 years ago there were a bunch of petitions and emails that came around, and it was said at the time, oh, you know, it's not a big issue, be patient. And it's true, it's not a big issue. But for those people in the community that like these things, it's actually kind of important. It's just part of the cultural background. And Nanaimo is a very diverse area, people from all around the world. And this is just one little part of the rich tapestry of life, if you want to put it that way. So I've been asking different people, members of the community and groups, if they would support this program. And we have support from about a dozen different community groups, including the South End Community Association, the Nanaimo Horticultural Society, the Nanaimo Area Land Trust. And in addition, we've got the support of professional botanists from Victoria and all the way to Ottawa. I'm happy to give to staff a petition asking you to look at this proposal. It has over 250 signatures on it, and we've just gathered those since Christmas from people who live in Nanaimo. In addition, I've got letters of support. The kind of environment that we live in today, these are all emails, but they're from some fairly prominent people from the Conservation Data Centre and the Garryock Ecosystem Recovery Team in Victoria. So when I say that this won't cost you a penny, I really mean that. My philosophy on these conservation issues is that if these resources are important to people across Canada, as they in fact say they are, they ought to be the people to pony up the money. And it brings money into the community because when we get a grant from the Habitat Stewardship Program in Ottawa for $5,000, that goes directly into the pockets of students. And when we get money from BC Transmission Corporation, as we have, $5,000 last year, that too goes into the pockets of local students. Weyerhaeuser, who owned this property back in the day, they ponied up $1,700 to fund the crew to cut the broom. We've also done quite a lot of property protection, trying to cut trails off, illegal trails that ATV drivers use on a weekend to get onto the meadows, and they like to churn these things up and go mudbagging. So I'm pleased to present the petition to you, and if I could, I'll ask Dr. Alan Heriski, formerly an instructor at VIU in biology, botany, to explain why Howard Plains is important and why Lotus pinnatus is such an important flower for us. I'll just show you these pictures quickly. That's the flower in going to seed. These are some of the students who are clearing. This is pretty fancy technology. One of the things we did in 2003 is that there were car wrecks that had been there for 30-odd years, and they were right in the middle of the meadows. They'd been dumped and torched and thrown off cliffs and whatnot, and we took 13 car wrecks out with a truck. Again, that truck cost about $1,000 for 2 days, but we were able to get funding for that, and the meadows look a lot better for it somehow. But there were some good motor parts on there, but that's a long time ago. The meadows looks a little bit like this. In the summer, it's brown and dry, but in the springtime, you see all the blues and pinks from camas and other native flowers. It's quite a sight to see.
Mr. Circle, I'm going to have to say that you're just about out of time. If you have another speaker, they've got about 30 seconds.
I'll give the floor to Dr. Alan Heriski. I apologize.
Well, thank you.
Well, I'm going to try to be very, very quick because I'd like you to hear from the students at Dover Bay who have something to say about this as well. As I already mentioned, my name is Alan Heriski. I originally graduated from Simon Fraser University in botany, covered the entire west coast of North America between here, Alaska, and California, collecting plants for them. After that, I got my graduate degree from the University of Victoria in taxonomy, conservation, biology, and biodiversity. And before I retired from what is known as VIU, Vancouver Island University, I was in charge of the Arboretum and Natural History Museum for about 15 years. To cut to the chase, number one, it's a beautiful looking plant. Charles gave me this. I hope he gives you a copy of his presentation. It's a beautiful looking flower. I cannot recommend it more. With all due respect to my Scottish compatriots, I think it's a much more beautiful looking flower than the thistle that they use. So in terms of a good looking plant, it's excellent. In terms of its range, it's unique to this Vancouver Island area. This Nanaimo area, even though the Garryoak ecosystem comes all the way up from California, it's not found anywhere else in Canada but here. And in the terms of that Jack Nicholson movie in 1997, that's about as good as it gets. Yes, Kelowna has the arrowleaf balsam root, but the arrowleaf balsam root is found throughout the Okanagan. This plant is unique to this area, and that, I think, is very, very important. Yes, and my last comment is, yes, it's red listed, but as long as we don't plant houses right on top of it, we can keep this species. I do not think it will disappear as long as we're aware of it and aware of how beautiful it is in this Garryoak ecosystem, which is now being preserved with more and more money coming from the federal government and more work being done on this. That's all I have to say unless you have questions. I really want the students to say their bit from Dover Bay.
Well, the time for the presentation is now over. Thank you. I was just going to ask for that. Moved by Councillor Kipp, seconded by Councillor Unger, that we hear from the students. All those in favour? Opposed? Carried? Yes, please come and continue the presentation. It's fascinating.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of council. Thank you for hearing this delegation of a flower emblem for our city, Nanaimo. We're students from Dover Bay Secondary School and members of the school's Environment Club. With over 40 club members, we have initiated many projects around our school, including an ongoing battery recycling program, Earth Day celebrations for environmental awareness, and much more. Recently, we have submitted a video about bottle recycling to BC Green Games, and we are working to strengthen our school's solid waste recycling program. At the provincial contest last year, we won a $2,000 cash prize and a solar voltaic system for our school. This spring break, we're working with Charles Circle here into city parks to remove invasive plants and replace them with native ones. We are doing this through Volunteers in Parks program to make the city parks better for fish and wildlife. Our passion for the natural beauty of our city is an important reason why we're here tonight.
Tonight we're here to speak for over 150 of our friends who signed a petition asking you to nominate Lotus pinnatus as our official floral emblem. Lotus pinnatus is one of the rarest flowers in Canada. In fact, it's known to be found only in, quoting a governmental source, 7 extant population within a small area on the east coast of Vancouver Island near Nanaimo. The species is disappearing really fast, and due to all the residential development, pollution, and habitat loss. In 2003, despite detailed searches, 2 more population in Nanaimo known from historical records were not relocated. Provincially, Lotus pinnatus is red listed by the BC Conservation Data Center, yet it is found here in our city of Nanaimo in large numbers on Harewood Plains. Nanaimo has more of those flowers than the rest of Canada combined. They're ours to protect and be proud of.
We feel very strongly the need to recognize our wildflower meadows because there are so few of them left untouched. We would like to have them to walk through and enjoy now, next year, and for many years into the future. Accepting this flower as our floral emblem is a simple decision for Nanaimo and the Council. To many of us, it might not matter which plant becomes our city flower, or if we even have one. However, this decision could greatly impact the survival of the rare Lotus pinnatus and the meadows around them. This decision is one that reflects our city's attitude towards the environment. About being environmentally friendly, we've always said every little action counts. We believe that this is more than just a little action. By adopting this wildflower as Nanaimo's city floral emblem, we are telling the world that we care about our land and that we appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you again for hearing this delegation.
Yes, thank you very much. And I wonder if you could give the staff your names, please.
I'm Emma Sway.
Alice Sway. Thank you.
Thank you. So, any questions from council?
Who received the delegation?
Oops.
Second the motion?
It's been moved and seconded that we received, but my screen has gone blank, so I can't tell whether we haven't. Get it? Oh, there it is. Okay. There's one question. Councillor Kipp?
No, I'd just like to thank the delegations, all of them, for the information, especially the students for getting up and standing up. It can be ominous sometimes. They did a phenomenal job, and I think we're going to make a motion after we receive this to send it back to Parks and Recreation. It's already there. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, in fact, the presentation has already been made to the Parks and Rec Commission, I understand, and they're considering the issue and, in fact, are expecting a staff report which should be forwarded to Council soon. Is that correct?
Yes, Acting Mayor. The staff have received a request from Mr. Thurkel and are working on a report for the Parks, Recreation and Culture Commission, which will be coming forward in a subsequent meeting, and they'll be making a recommendation to Council.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's a fascinating subject, and we will soon know whether Nanaimo will adopt the flower.
Question on the motion?
The motion is to receive the delegation. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, there's no mayor's report, so we'll move to the proclamations. If staff could read those, please.
We're going to bring that other delegation.
Nobody made a motion, so we'll be soon. Go ahead, please.
That the month of April is the Canadian Cancer Society's Daffodil Month, and that April 9th, 2010 is Daffodil Day in the city of Nanaimo. That March 21st, 2010 is Elimination of Racial Discrimination Day in the city of Nanaimo.
Thank you. That leads us to commission reports. The first one is from Parks, Recreation and Culture Commission. The minutes of the meeting held January 27th.
So move, Mr. Chipper.
Motion is to receive the minutes.
Yes.
We moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The Nanaimo Community Heritage Commission. The motion is that Council endorse the Nanaimo Community Heritage Commission's work plan for 2010.
On behalf of the Nanaimo. And the Heritage Advisory Committee, I move the recommendation.
Second motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next, the committee reports. The first one is, the only one is from the Advisory Committee on the Environment, and the motion is that Council endorse the Advisory Committee on the Environment's work plan for 2010. Moved by Councillor Kipp, seconded by Councillor Unger. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That leads us to the staff reports, and first under Development Services is a report of the special public hearing held Thursday, February 18th for bylaw 6500.007. The motion is that Council receive the report and the minutes for the special public hearing held on that date. It's been moved by Councillor Unger, seconded by Councillor Bestwick. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moving on to unresolved building deficiencies, bylaw contravention notice for a marijuana grow operation at 494 Halliburton Street. Is there anyone in attendance who wishes to speak with respect to the unresolved building deficiencies and marijuana grow operation for 494 Halliburton Street? Yes, do you wish to come forward, please? If you could give us your name and address and interest in the property, please.
Good evening, my name is Barbara Calder. I reside on 594 Street, Nanaimo. I work at Chillicum-Layla, Aboriginal.
Thank you.
And I'm wanting to speak to point D, illegal grow op. Remove the structure or bring it up to standard within 30 days.
Okay, that's the next motion that's coming up. This one would simply file a bylaw contravention notice respecting the property.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Please.
I understand that they are proper, the permits and stuff are in place to do the deck and do the doors and do what is being required of that property. Is that correct?
Is there a response from staff on this?
They're complying, in other words. That's what I understand.
Your Worship, under these processes, the owner would have 30 days before any action would be taken by the city, even if council adopts these resolutions. So if that is correct, and I have no doubt that she's advising the truth, then we will not proceed with the implementation of any resolutions.
Okay. But we can deal only with the information we have before us at this time, and if there's new information, it would affect whether the action would take place.
Thank you, Council. Okay, then is D just going to float in the air and go into abeyance until we look at C, or can I ask a question to D?
Well, let's deal with C first. You don't wish...
Stay here? Stand here?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Any further discussion on, or any other public input on item C, the bylaw contravention notice? Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the staff recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now on D, again, the request is that we hear from anyone who has an interest in 494 Halliburton Street. That's you. And yes, now if you wish to ask your question.
Okay, two questions. What was found at 494 Halliburton? Like, what number of plants that it's constituted as a grow-op? Do we know?
One.
Okay.
Do we know?
Can staff respond to the question, please?
Your Worship, we don't have that information available. It would just have been determined by the RCMP and the bylaw people that this was a facility involving the cultivation and processing of marijuana, so they would have determined that it was a grow operation. As far as the exact number of plants, I don't have that information, but we can provide that if that's desired.
Okay, yes.
A comment and a question. The owner-operator of the Coffee Vault, Dimitar Sapunovitz, has been a strong member for the community and working as a business operator for 9 years in Nanaimo. He is an immigrant, Macedonian Bulgarian, He has been working since December 22nd on his own, running that shop 7 days a week for weeks. And he has supported the Christmas Hamper Drive for a number of years for Tillicum and has great respect with Grace Elliott Nielsen. I found him to be a man who never explains himself and never complains. And I, as a citizen residing in Nanaimo since 65 and at Bush Street since 68, have great distress to see unresolved building and let's knock down the structure. You know, he's looking after the interest of a business professional, a dentist in Vancouver. They own the Heritage Building downtown, 499 Wallace. And there was some pot found at 494 Halliburton. There's no guilt. It's before the court. And now, and this is my last comment, Councilman, is that this is his niece. She's 13 years old. And my niece, and that's Sarah Stewart, that's her mother.
Okay.
Really, just my 2 minutes. It hurts my heart that Nanaimo is penalizing or moving so quickly and rushing to judgment. He's complying, the permits are in place, I brought that new information, and I'm going to trust in the system to do what's right.
Thank you. And he's the tenant in the dwelling?
He's only a tenant, yes.
Yes, and you're the owner? You're the owner?
No, I'm a friend.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
As I am to your wife.
The motion is that Council, pursuant to Section 73 of the Community Charter, order the owners of 494 Halliburton Street to remove the structure or bring it up to standard within 30 days. So there are some options there.
Yeah, so like we say in point one, you didn't know he's moving as quickly as he can as he keeps operating his business.
Okay.
And that man, he's helped many community groups. He's at the heart of Nanaimo.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what is Council's pleasure?
Question.
Moved by Councillor Sherry, seconded by Councillor McNabb.
I have a question.
Councillor Paggi. Yes, please.
Well, before the lady leaves.
Yes. There is a question for you.
Just a quick question.
I'm used to.
Do you know how many plants were involved?
I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Unger?
I just wanted to clarify that within 30 days means they have to start getting things up to date.
They've been actively.
Yeah, well, then there should be no concern.
It is when you've been working since December 22nd without a break. His mind is just undoing, and we're trying to support him, that's all.
Well, when you say the permits are already been applied for, that's all that is required.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what Andrew Taylor was trying to counsel him was.
Okay, Councillor Kipp?
The person you're talking about, is he the owner of the building?
No.
Or just a tenant? He's just a tenant of the building?
Just the tenant.
And you're concerned he's going to get kicked out in 30 days. That's your biggest concern, and the building's going to be torn down. He's going to be dislodged.
Is that a question, or can I?
Yeah, no, I'm asking you.
Okay,
Is your feeling with this motion?
Dimmy's concern is, because he's looking after the residents for this business professional in Vancouver, that he's lost control of that building, and he's trying to run his operation, the coffee vault. So he just needs, in his mind, to know that if he complies, everything's going to be okay, and he'll have his day in court, and everything will work itself out. But it's just like boom, 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 boom. They're knocking it down. They're going, for pot, and how many plants, and how is it to grow up? I don't know those things.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing with this process, too, is saying that they have to try and comply.
Yeah, and being a Bulgarian and bitchy, he doesn't really answer too well. But I love him.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that everything? Okay.
Okay, the motion is actually on the floor. Any further discussion? Ready to vote? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Under corporate services, we have a bylaw to increase the rate charged to Southwest, which is the extension area for bulk water supply. And the recommendation is that Council receive the report pertaining to Southwest Bulk Water Rate Bylaw 2010, number 7099, which appears under the bylaw section of this evening's agenda. So this is just a...
Move staff recommendation.
It's been moved and seconded that we receive their report. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Information only items. we have an item regarding the Downtown Nanaimo Business Improvement Association from Mr. Tucker. Is there a motion to receive?
Move receive it, the information on it.
Second motion.
Been moved and seconded. And any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Questions regarding that item?
It's not a question, Mr. Chairman, but I'd like the minutes to record, if you please, that I'd like to congratulate publicly Councillor Unger for his excellent work in chairing the committee during its time of change, and he did an exceptional job on behalf of Council, and I'd just like to acknowledge that.
Thank you very much, and I think you speak on behalf of all of Council in that regard. So congratulations, Councillor Unger. Okay. That leads us then to the reconsideration of bylaws. Councillor Johnston, would you please read the bylaw?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move that the financial plan bylaw 2010 number 7097 be adopted this time.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor McNabb. I wonder if staff could give us the context and the significance of this bylaw.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Holden. This bylaw, when it's adopted, will provide expenditure authority to fund the ongoing operations of the city, which, of course, we're into the third month of now. It will be, our staff will be bringing forward suggested amendments and proposed changes as early as April, because the final budget amendments and adoption has to be in place by May 15th. And the amendments that come forward will be to take into account new information that we weren't aware of when this draft was prepared, and final assessment data. And there will also be ongoing discussion at the council level with regard to works and reviews that are in progress. So the final budget will be an opportunity in April and May to make changes to this, but in the meanwhile this does provide authority for all the ongoing operations.
And in fact it implements the changes that have been made to date.
That's correct, yep.
Although allowing for further changes up till May 15th. Okay, thank you. Councillor Paggi?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be supporting the adoption of the financial plan for two reasons. One is one that you yourself are largely responsible for in the way of a suggested compromise when we adopted the first 17 items that we were given by Mr. Kenning, the city manager. That to some of us wasn't good enough, and it was you who initiated a further action that resulted in 7 more items being done. So compromise, I know, is the name of the game, and that is one of the really important reasons that I can support adoption now. Having said that, I want to make sure that everybody knows that there's a difference between adoption and final approval, and so we can still have some work to do. Further, I'm satisfied that one of the requirements that I had myself all along was the fact that there are certain elements of staffing and benefit budget items that are still going to come our way by way of a special report from Mr. Kenning. And I trust that Mr. Kenning will make sure that we have that report well in advance of our final approval method so that we can take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone? Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question to staff as it relates to the information that will be coming back to us within that 2 or 3 week period or 4 week period of time. Does the potential exist that the information that comes back could in fact worsen the situation as we know it today as it relates to the proposed increase with the new information that we aren't privy to today?
Acting Mayor Holdham and Council, there is, of course, some element of risk to the final assessment data. There are some major taxpayers, Harmac for one, that have their assessment under appeal. So there is some chance that they could be successful in their appeal, and that could have implications for 2010, even 2009, and future years. And if that decision is made before April or even May, it could well be taken into account in the budget, and it could provide a challenge for council to deal with the negative consequences.
May I just follow that up? With that said, and with the uncertainty, until such time as that information is provided to us, one question is, would it be prudent to wait for that information? And the second question is, as it relates to the by adoption this evening, if it is, what programs, when we make reference to, that we could continue with or get started on or maintain that we aren't currently doing today? So 2 questions, if you may.
Mayor Oldham and Council, the first question about is it prudent to wait? Well, I think that we need to proceed on the information that we have, and there will be an opportunity next month through to May 15th to make changes if changes are necessary. Council does have a reserve fund that is set aside for the event of tax information that's unfavorable, and any solution will probably partially at least use that reserve fund. The second question, excuse me, I forgot.
Programs that, with adoption this evening, programs that we can continue with or start or maintain that aren't currently started or currently being maintained.
Well, the advantage of adopting this at this time is it provides some intent with regard primarily to the capital budget and to projects that are in the budget, because it's very difficult if there's very late approval of the budget to get all the work done that's planned, and we want to get as quick a start on it as we can. So some of the projects in the capital budget, staff will get more earnest in the planning process, and yes, some expenditure planning money will be made, but we believe that that's important to keep council's objectives underway and implemented.
Just a final comment then, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Okay, comment.
In a rhetorical sense, then, if we're suggesting that we can come back after we receive that information if it's not favorable or to our liking and make change at that time. But however, what I heard was we can get started in earnest with projects so that we can get them completed on time or within a reasonable period of time, which to me then sends a message that by adoption we do get started in earnest, and the likelihood of amending, adjusting, slowing down or stopping something that we start tomorrow, March 10th or whatever the date is, may not be likely. Did I understand that correctly?
No, I think you've hit on a really difficult challenge, and we think that we try to strike a balance in finding that balance between what we know council wants to continue to think about and other items that are in the budget that we don't think there is much doubt about at all. And staff do try to strike that balance, and if we believe that there's any doubt in council's mind about a project, we certainly won't proceed until the annual budget's adopted.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Kipp.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, when I look at page 215 in our white pages, and I look at the top line revenues and the expenses, I'm worried that we're worrying about this budget here, but down the road we've got some real heavy decisions to make when I look at that sheet. But I can support going forward now to give sort of the go-ahead on some of the issues, and I'm happy to hear from Mr. Kenny that we are able still possibly to change some things in the future. But I think we got to get on with 2010 a bit, and we really have to look at 2011, 2012, 2013, because there's a high expectation of revenue and a high expectation of expenses over the next 5 years. And I think we really got to seriously look at how these are growing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kenny, sorry.
Mr. Clemens, the Director of Finance, has just reminded me that this amendment does substantially lower the tax increase from the level that is in the existing plan, so that for those members of council that are concerned about doing this, I think that the general message is positive, that the tax increase is substantially lowered from where it was in the last version.
Yes, most of the modifications we've made have been to reduce the budget, and this would implement those reductions. Yeah. Okay, is council ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sherry and Bestwick opposed. All other members of council in favor? Okay, can we proceed then to the introduction of new bylaws? Councillor Johnston?
Sorry. That's Southwest Bulk Water Rate Bylaw 2010 number 7099 to establish the rate for bulk water supply to Southwest as $1.50 per 1,000 gallons be given first reading.
Second motion.
Moved and seconded. Councillor McNabb. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That Southwest Bulk Water Rate Bylaw 2010 number 7099 be given second reading.
Second motion.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That Southwest Bulk Water Rate Bylaw 2010 number 7099 be given third reading.
Second motion.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, that completes the bylaws. The correspondence. Been moved and seconded that we receive the 2 items of correspondence. Seeing no hands, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any business arising from the correspondence? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on then. There are no council appointments or notices of motion or other business. It's other business, okay. Councillor Kipp.
Well, I just wanted to say, I don't know if this is the perfect time, but we're on TV, and today I got crap thinking we'd make a little staged event, but I thought the Olympics were wonderful. I was so proud to be Canadian, proud of Mr. John Furlong and the job that they did with Vanoc as far as the events in Vancouver and that went. From the participation I heard here in Nanaimo, and the people really enjoyed it. Really proud to be Canadian over the last little while. I hope we get out and support the Olympics that are coming up now too, and send the same message about how proud we are as Canadians, the people that compete not only in Canada but across the world. And I am extremely proud of John Furlong for the work he's done. And I know Councillor Bestwick and I talked about it and thought it'd be nice to somehow recognize what he's done over time over the next little while, because it's nice to know that he did work in Nanaimo. What's that? Well, he spent a lot of time in Nanaimo, did a lot in our recreation departments, and that, and proud to be Canadian. So, although he needs to improve his French, I do think so. But
yes, I remember being on the regional board when Mr. Furlong was an employee there, and it's remarkable what he's been able to accomplish. And a wonderful event.
And of course the people in Nanaimo that staged some of the events, watching the hockey game down in the plaza, some 500 people turned up for the Canada game at the end. It was quite unique. Councillor Johnson spent a lot of time doing that, and it was a neat event. A lot of people had a lot of fun, and of course O Canada broke out right at the end of it, and it was quite a neat event. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
There, I got my 2 bits working.
Okay, thank you. I guess that qualifies as other business. All right, so that leads us to delegations pertaining to items not on the agenda, and we have a request from Ms. Kathy Davis and Mr. James Cunningham to present a slideshow of Nanaimo buskers at the Olympics. So that's a nice segue that you just received from Councillor Kipp for this. So welcome, and yes, please.
Joanna?
Did you pay him to do that?
Okay, good evening, Acting Mayor and Council. We are here to report to you about our experience in Vancouver during the 2010 Olympic Games as street entertainers. I started off a few months ago a bit disappointed about the Games. I had concerns about the costs. I did not want to participate in the Olympics at all. When I was given the opportunity to be part of what is called TransLink Idol by the media, I decided to get involved and become part of something that was an experience of a lifetime. After winning a spot performing at the TransLink stations, I was immediately involved with the 2010 Olympic Games and have no regrets, as I performed with my sister Kathy at the stations for TransLink and on Granville Street. We were given free licenses by the Business Improvement Association in downtown Vancouver, and we were treated with total respect by all law enforcement staff. During our performances, we made it a priority to include Nanaimo as a destination for a holiday and promoted Nanaimo continuously as we were amplified with the blessing of the Vancouver BIA. During the gold medal hockey game, we told all spectators on Granville Street that we would keep them posted on the score of the hockey game via text messaging from Nanaimo on Vancouver Island. Our only disappointment is the fact that my sister Kathy was charged more than double for a criminal records check by staff at the front office of the Nanaimo RCMP station after she produced a letter indicating that she was a volunteer at the Olympic Games on behalf of TransLink, who are a non-profit group and are registered with the provincial government as such. Bylaw number 7041 here in Nanaimo, a bylaw to establish various fees and charges, clearly states, volunteers of a non-profit organization receive a reduced rate if they reside within the city of Nanaimo and they produce a signed and dated letter on letterhead from non-profit organization that includes their name and outlines what their duties will be within the organization, and I have given you such a letter. I feel the paragraph I just read, which is part of Bylaw 7041, should be adhered to by city employees in the office of the Nanaimo RCMP detachment, and also should not be interpreted as they choose for each volunteer from our community as they request criminal records checks. Thank you for listening, and I will now hand the mic over to my sister Kathy.
Thank you.
Kathy Davis, 2114 Line Crescent. I do have a speech here, and I'm just going to read a part of it. A year ago, I would have been counted as an Olympic naysayer. I was one of those people who said, a waste of money, spend $1 billion for security on social problems. I stand before you today with a new perspective and a changed mind. You had to be there. We read about the TransLink volunteer busking program in January and went over 3 times to Vancouver. The build-up towards the Olympics was absolutely amazing. You could feel it in the streets. I felt that this was a real opportunity for buskers and also for the city of Nanaimo. I contacted Mark Drysdale at Tourism Nanaimo, and we took a box of Nanaimo promotional materials over to the games with us. So every day that we were on the street, we were promoting Nanaimo. It was a huge opportunity. I was really disappointed in the treatment I received at the RCMP office, and you know me, I'm usually a negative, but I want to turn that into a positive. I've given you a list of probably more than 30 organizations that I have volunteered with and do volunteer with at the moment, as well as different fundraisers. I believe that Nanaimo is part of our province, is part of our country, and I don't think it's too much to ask that volunteers who are volunteering at the Olympics or anywhere else should receive at least a reduced rate for a criminal records check. I think that it's a world community, and if we have volunteers that go to Haiti or anywhere in the world, we're all representing our city, and I'd like to see the bylaw either amended or modified. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Very positive message. Any questions from Council? Councillor Unger.
Thank you. What were you charged for your criminal records check, and was there any difference between what each of you paid?
Yes, my brother was charged $10. I was charged $25. And the gentleman at the front desk, the first thing he said was he didn't think that buskers were volunteers because they were like hot dog vendors and receiving money. And the other fella at the desk said my brother got a deal. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know.
Well, I think if you take that to the bylaws department of the city, you should be looked after, because there aren't two prices, and if one is volunteer, then the other is volunteer. So if you go see the bylaws department, I think you'll be looked after. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much.
I just had a question. Was it TransLink that required the criminal records check or the City of Nanaimo?
It was TransLink that required the criminal records check, and every other community who was involved in the TransLink volunteer program waived the fee for the criminal records check, and you have a letter from TransLink stating that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Johnston?
I just want to congratulate you, Catherine, and James for being such great ambassadors for our community at the Olympics. I know you did an amazing job, and thank you for thinking about the tourism aspect and being good ambassadors for our city. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're really proud to live in Nanaimo and to go somewhere and tell people about where we live. It's important.
And just as a sideline, was it worth your while to be there financially, lucratively? Did you do well?
Actually, we've actually made 5 trips and we've just broken even. But we're going to go back for the Paralympics.
Good for you.
But you can't buy what we got.
No, that's great.
You can't.
Thank you. Councillor Kipp.
It's not a question to the delegation. It's just about criminal record checks. It's funny that the volunteers have to go into the paid staff and pay money to get a criminal record check. And I've always fought against them for all of the volunteers, but I understand there's a cost doing that business. But we have to look at some of these major events, and we've always been asked different corporations to help fund this type of thing. So I'd really like to revisit how we do our criminal record checks, because we're going to require more volunteers over the next years, the way our economy sits. So I appreciate the work that Cunninghams did. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded that we receive the delegation. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anything coming from that? All right, then question period. Any questions about items that were on this evening's agenda? I don't see anybody getting up. It's moved by Councillor Unger, seconded by Councillor McNabb that we adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're adjourned.
Embarrassing.
Most of the people I know now will tell me a story, but they'll qualify it first. You can't write about this. So, yeah, I've had to make a few promises here and there that certain things would never find their way into print.
Luckily, a lot of stories do make it into print, and Bob's books have twice been shortlisted for the prestigious Leacock Award for Humor.
Oh, life is funny. So most of those stories, and most people think there's some humor in them, most of those stories are not a long wander from the truth. The odd one is more or less a fabrication, but I would say 90% of them are 90% true. So the humor there is just around you every day. And if, as most people farming know, if you can't pay yourself with that humor, you'll be poorly paid indeed.
He's doing a great job, and he enjoys what he does, and it's a win-win, actually.
I barely scratched the surface, and more stuff keeps happening. And then if you keep your ears open and your mouth shut,